My name's David Lewis. I just want to thank you for joining us to this Adding Video to Your Extension program. This is an opportunity really for you to learn about a number of resources that are out there to coach you, support you, and connect throughout the division as we try to make this a real part of all of our programs. This webinar and the upcoming clinics in April that will be discussed towards the end of the call today are one of the two ways that the strategic initiative leaders are trying to provide some support to all of you across the Division of Ag and Natural Resources. And so just keep that in mind, that on behalf of Deanne Meyer and Jim Farrar and Lynn Schmidt-McQuitty, David Lyle and myself, and Mark Bell, while we're not doing what we might have called coordinating conferences that were done in the past across disciplines, we are trying to bring opportunities like this for the division to come together and build skills and do programming together. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for joining us. Also on behalf of a really wonderful organizing committee, including Peter Cassina, Jolynn Miller, Dustin Blakey, Linda Forbes, and Lauren Snowden, who have really helped both with this webinar and also been essential to the organization of the clinics that will be held in April. I just want to thank them. They're going to carry a large part of the content today and just represent the cadre of experts that we already have within ANR to do this kind of work. So thank you to them. Before I move on, I don't know, David or Mark, is there anything more? And then I'll continue with the introduction.
I think that's great, Dave. I think let's just go ahead and start with the webinar.
So why video and program, and why think about it? You know, clearly I don't know how you are as a learner. And let me back up and give a couple more housekeeping things. Yes, we are recording this, and so it'll be made available later, so just know that. And we really coach you to use the chat feature. David Lyle's going to track that through the talks, and we'll make strategic pauses as we work through the content to address questions that you put into the chat. So use that chat feature, know it's being monitored, and we'll make some time to look at what you know, questions and things you raise so we can address them throughout the hour. So why bother about video? Again, I was starting to say that, you know, for myself as a learner, I just repaired the dryer at home using a video. That how-to, that, you know, trying to figure out what materials to use is definitely, YouTube becomes a go-to source. So it's just something to be thinking about. Clearly, there's lots of other product on YouTube, but videos play a big part of how people today, Californians today, are accessing information for any number of reasons and items. The question to ask ourselves is really, you know, those educational videos, you know, how many views? Where does it fall in terms of the types of content on YouTube? And quite probably not surprising to us, but hopefully motivationally to us, educational videos are number 2 in terms of the number of views on YouTube. So here the deal then is for us is we don't want to be left out. You know, ask yourselves, who has some of the best how-to information, best educational content for really practical use on a day-to-day basis? And, you know, I think we'd want to say us for sure. There's others, as you know, we're always willing to partner and acknowledge others, but boy, don't we, bringing our research-based information, fit that mold of educational how-to videos. So, you know, just with that in mind then, you know, our goal, and really there's some wonderful parts of ANR coming together where we've got people already doing this kind of work. We have a communication strategies team that's really ready, already equipped to help us with the marketing and distribution, and formally curating the YouTube channel for ANR. ANR has a YouTube channel. So we want to come together and just keep building on that momentum and even make a more clear goal of let's take over YouTube. Let's get our how-to information out there so people want it, can find it, and can learn from it. So in terms of helping us do that, this webinar, we'll spend about an hour with you. We're going to cover just a few topics. I think even after today, you'll leave with some skills and some direction on how to produce short, do-it-yourself how-to videos, and you'll be connected with a lot of resources for further learning and support. Be that you know, equipment or software selection, tools for the introduction and for the closing of any video production you do. So just know that spending this hour already puts you on your way to learning and being successful in doing these how-to videos. And towards the end, we'll pick up on the clinics that are proposed in April and some other online learning that's already available or going to be available shortly. So before I turn it over to our first presenter, David, what are you seeing anything there in the chat that folks need answered at this early stage?
We're good on the chat.
Okay, so then I'm going to introduce Peter Casina from the UC Integrated Pest Management statewide program. Peter's been a go-to expert and leads a lot of video and online learning development, and we're just really lucky to have him deliver a couple different sections, including this kind of opening section of, you know, how is it right for you and when do you know? So Peter, with that, I'll let you take over and I'll click the slides for you.
Thank you. So I'm hopefully unmuted.
Yep.
So when you get into point that you are thinking about creating a video for extension of some of your information that you have available, at the very first step, make sure that you know why you want to do a video, why not to use some another format. It depends definitely a lot on what are you trying to explain or what will you try to explain, on your time availability, on your resources, on your expertise. But keep in mind that whatever can be explained easily in text, maybe with using some image or graph, that most possibly does not need to be presented as a video, because we read faster than we speak. And that means that whatever you will be explaining in the video by spoken word, if it can be easily read, people will be faster and it will be easier for them just to get it in form of printed material. Other point that I want to mention, video is definitely the medium to show some motion. Whether it's a person, whether it's some machine, whether it's a camera moving, showing a bigger picture. But static, long static shots are not interesting. David, can you click more? Yeah, so the video is good for showing people and places. Imagine master gardeners showing something in the garden. Yes, it could be shown in few pictures, but the camera offers you much broader picture, much broader scope of what's going on in the garden. Showing some action, machinery, demonstrating techniques. And that can be, I believe, in A&R in many different ways used. Next, David. Yep. What is not good for, as I've already mentioned, is long explanations, facts and figures. I would say, unless if there is a way how you can in some way animate figures and facts. But in that way, it would become what we call infographics, and that would be the whole another story that we will not touch in this course. Static situations, even the static speakers, just not interesting enough. After a few seconds, maybe after a minute, you will lose attention of your audience. Next. So what are the advantages of using the video? Definitely how-to instructions, sequential processes, when there is a step going after step in defined order, and complex concepts where the visual parts definitely will facilitate the learning of your audience. Videos increase motivation, for sure, more than just written text, no doubt about that. And there is also a research that has been done that proved there is definitely a longer retention of information when we receive it by more than one sense. And watching and listening to video are at least two senses involved in the process, so there is a better chance, better probability of longer retention of information. And obviously video is an attractive content to share on social media, and social media's algorithms are promoting posts that include videos. Next are the disadvantages. Whenever you need to change something in your material, whether it's an update or correction, it will be always much harder to do that in the video than it can be in any textual form of your information. Obviously, you need specific skills, equipment, software. Software and equipment is becoming more accessible, less expensive than 10, 15 years ago. Skills still will take time to develop. Then you need to take in consideration environmental and external factors. Weather, whatever you plan to do just cannot be recorded at any time of the day, at any time of the year. And external factors like a noise. You just have a perfect place where you want to record and somebody starts to cutting the lawn next to your place. And there are so many things that can go wrong. And Murphy's law is if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. So the development takes more time than writing. An important point to make is also that video dictates the speed of information receiving. Different people learn in different way, in different speed. So keep in mind that the video may always look too fast for somebody and too slow for other person. Just we are looking to find some compromise. Next. There are a few examples of use of video in agriculture extension. Some of them are obvious, but maybe you didn't think about using the video for extension from farmer to farmer, which is used quite a lot in developing countries. I haven't seen it so much used here in California. And video can be also an interesting tool for documenting a qualitative feedback for monitoring and evaluation. So that may be something you can also think about for your next projects. Viewers obviously expect more than just a talking head. Unless if your speaker is a David Attenborough or Barack Obama, then I think even talking head will be acceptable for a few minutes, just a few minutes. Just again, keep in mind, video is the medium for your message. It should not be the goal to have the video. So think well about what will be your message. And next. Also keep in mind that depending on how you plan to share the video, may be an important factor for how long the video should be. Obviously, you want to cover everything what you need to cover, but there was research done by many agencies on people's retention on watching videos on different media. These are not all possible ways of sharing your video, but the shorter is the better. That's pretty clear. And so what we do suggest is don't go longer than 3 minutes. That's kind of a goal that you will find in many different posts and blogs on internet. Try to target 3 minutes. If you go a few seconds over, not big deal. But if you make a 10 minutes video of something that could be done much shorter, you are losing your audience half the way through. And next. So before the camera rolls, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Thinking about the audience, thinking a lot about the story, getting a lot of feedback to your ideas, and thinking about how you plan to distribute the video. So that's exactly what we are trying to cover in this webinar and in the following 2 days workshop. So I'll pass, unless if there is any question, I will pass to the next speaker.
I don't see anything on chat, so I think we're good.
So we'll move on to the next content, but I do want to emphasize, this is David Lewis again, this section that Petter just covered for us, and I'm going to invite in Jolynn Miller, a 4-H Youth Development Advisor, to carry the next section on target audience. I hope what you're realizing is it's worth taking some time to think about some things even before you start working on your video itself. And just as Petter lined out what kinds of ways videos are an advantage and a disadvantage, we also want to take time to think about target audience. So Jolynn, thank you for helping us with a few slides on that topic.
Thanks for having me. So I think when we're talking about target audience, we're talking about the same things as we are doing our normal extension work. So who is coming to our workshop is going to be the same question that we're going to ask ourselves for who do we want to be in our video. Initially, you may think that because it's on YouTube, my audience is everybody. And you could be expanding your audience by using a YouTube video, but you still need to identify who your target audience is. And one of the ways to do that is using demographics, socioeconomic status, geography, behavior patterns, things like that. If you're already on social media, an idea that you can use is the analytics through Twitter or Facebook. Who are people that are already following your social media feed? We'll have some resources later on with links, and one of those is how to deal with analytics, how to understand what those analytics mean. So deciding who your audience is really important before you do anything else. And one thing is to announce who your audience is going to be in the description or at the beginning of the video. You know, for when we talk about an example of identifying a certain pest, you might want to say for the first, 2 seconds, 5 seconds of the video, this video is meant for people who are looking for this pest in their field, so that people don't waste the whole 3 minutes of the video and then realize this video wasn't for them. And then can you expand your audience potentially? So good. Learning objectives. Again, same thing with what we're discussing in your normal extension programs. What do you want out of this 3 minutes, this 30 seconds? Do you just want people to be aware that your program exists? Do you want somebody to learn a specific skill? And if so, how are you going to measure that skill, that learning after the video? Do we want to invite them to an event, or do we want to create some sort of call to action, to donate, to visit to our website? So once we've decided on what we want our viewers to get, then we can build the storyboard and the video and everything like that. Lastly, I'm just touching very quickly on culturally relevant programming. We'll have more details for you later, and links to things that you can learn more. But really quickly, what is culture? Next slide. So culture is the shared experiences of people, including their languages, values, customs, and worldviews. Next slide. And how does that relate to culturally relevant programming? What I really want you to think about as we just touch on this today is I just want you to have that in the forefront of your mind as you're building your story, building your video. Use the cultural knowledge, prior experiences, and frames of reference and performance styles of the ethnically diverse students, or in this case, audience members, to make learning encounters more relevant and effective for them. Next slide. So just some really quick tips that I think that can really help is understanding and identifying your own cultural identity really helps as you shape and look at others. Examine your assumptions about teaching diverse populations. Especially learning about the cultures and identities and practices of your target audience. I know if you're working with the Hmong farmers, you really want to understand what their cultural practices are like so that you can target your video to those cultural practices. What's really important too in any sort of extension programming is including diverse voices of history and theories, experiences in your teaching materials, and then incorporating multicultural information resources and materials. So we're just scratching the surface on this today, but just want to make sure that you keep that in mind as you move forward. I think
Great.
That's it for me.
No,
yeah.
Thanks, Jolene. Yeah. Again, Dave, Lyle, just anything there that folks have questions at this stage?
Nope, nothing on chat, and we're perfect as far as time.
Okay. So you've given some thought to, is video the right project for you? You've given some deeper thought into your audience and the culturally relevant aspects of delivering program for that audience. And then it's really important to start scripting and storyboarding, starting to really get your story worked out. And that's where Petter's going to come back in and help us with that part of doing video production. So Petter, thank you. And hopefully everybody sees script and storyboard. Is that correct? Okay, great. So Petter, are you there?
Yes, I am here. So what I wanted to mention is that not everything what I'm presenting comes necessarily from my mind. I don't like to reinvent the wheel, so I've listed the resources. If you get our presentations afterwards, you can go and dig more into the details. And so how to start? Script or storyboard. Maybe if you are more a visual learner, visual person, you want to start with a storyboard, drawing down, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. However, I think it's more common to start with a script. So you have your learning objective or more. Though if it's a short video up to 3 minutes, I would definitely not go for more than 1 or 2 learning objectives for 3-minute video. You have defined your audience. What next? Write down all the essential information. What your audience needs to understand and why. And I'm really saying write down. Don't only think about it, because as you start to write down, you will be analyzing better on what needs to be done, what needs to be said, what needs to be shown. What are the key points or steps that you need to communicate in order to explain well your idea? And what do you want your audience to do once they understand the concept that you are explaining? So as I said, start writing, because writing down helps better to understand and helps better to direct your thoughts. Next. For the framework for your script, set the scenes, why the idea matters. What is in it for your audience? Tell the story. There are other courses and other webinars that explain how to best tell the stories. We will not go into that in this one. But stories are definitely more motivating and more interesting than academic talks. So keep that in mind, and wherever possible, include a little bit of humor. That also helps. Make connections. Your audience most possibly already has some experience, has some knowledge, has some perspective. Build on your audience existing knowledge. Describe the steps one by one in an order and why they matter. Just limit whatever you are trying to say and whatever you write in your script, limit to a key memorable steps. Try to retract from going into side paths and unnecessarily details. Your goal is really to inspire your audience. And when you get into call for action or call to action, what do you want them to do? Visit website, download an app, share your video, tell it clearly, show your audience that the next step and encourage them to take it. Next. Few scripts, do's and don'ts. Don't forget to introduce appropriately your character or characters, depending how your video will be planned. For 3 minutes, limit your script to maybe 400 to 500 words. Less is more in this case. When you have the script, or at least the draft of script, read it aloud, because narration for the video is a spoken language, not an academic article. And you will realize once you stay in front of camera, if you are reading an article, it just doesn't go right. It needs to be a common language. Remember to limit the use of abbreviations as much as possible. Or at least if you are mentioning something many times, make sure that when you are mentioning it first time, you clearly define what that abbreviation means. Always remember that video is better to show something than to tell something. So think more about what will be happening on the screen. And important aspect of the, or important goal for the script is to share it and get the feedback. It's much easier to change things, change ideas in your script than when you get into the production phase and you are filming or even editing. Then it's really much harder to make changes and corrections. So share your script with your peers, with a selected group from your target audience, get the feedback, write, rewrite, share again. And one important decision that you need to make at the moment of writing the script is, will you record the audio simultaneously with the video, Or will you be doing the voiceover, meaning you record the visual part and later on you put on top of that recorded narration? Or it can be some kind of combination, obviously. Next. Here is an example, a piece of script that we have used for a 3-minute video that you can find on YouTube. It's a video we have done with Rachel Long, advisor here in Yolo County, on identification of parasitized alfalfa caterpillars. So what you can see, first line, very brief introduction. Who is Rachel? Farm advisor in Yolo County. Second line, immediately, what I'm going to show you in this video. Just very briefly, recognize caterpillars, whether they have been parasitized by tiny wasps or not. Then already going in more into the depth of the topic, which are the most common caterpillars, why they are important, they cause damage to alfalfa, what do you need to know? And this is just the first part of the script. There would be about twice as much of it if we go into whole. But this was just to show you the type of language that was used in this type of information. Obviously, if you are in 4-H or master gardener, it may look entirely different. Next. So moving from the script to storyboard. Just interesting fact, storyboard was allegedly developed by Walt Disney Studios in early 1930s, so it's not entirely new concept. What the storyboard is, it's a blueprint. It's a comic book version of your script. You take your script and you visualize what's happening on the screen while the narration is being read. It also helps you to divide the story into the chunks or into the scenes. But on the other side, it helps you also to keep it coherent, not to lose track. Next. It will guide you what shots you will need to create. And for those shots, what props and what tools and other visuals you may need to know, or you may need to have. By other visuals, I mean photos, slides, a screencast if you are demonstrating use of an app or some schemes, some animations. There's a lot of resources and you don't need to create everything because many of them are already existing in different repositories. It also helps you to think about how you will create all these visuals that you need for your video. So in all, it's an excellent plan for production because once you have the storyboard, you also immediately can extract what is what you need, where it will be filmed, what are all the props, what are all the tools that you need to develop your filming and your video. It guides editing. Maybe you will be the editor, easier, but in case you will be using help of somebody else, the storyboard will be extremely important document for your editor. It forces you to think about the details ahead of time, how the scenes will go through transition, where you may use a different move of camera, and I will talk about that a little bit later. What text will be on the screen, where to place it on the screen, and all these things that normally people forget about and usually start to think about them only when they are in the editing. But it's better to have it before so you can properly prepare your filming, your object in the screen when you are filming, for example. And again, storyboard, similarly as the script, is a great tool for sharing with others. It's just a document on paper. So send it to your peers, send it to your target audience, get the feedback, go back to the drawing board until you get something that you are really happy with. Yes, it is an extra step in planning. It takes some time, but it saves you a lot of time and frustration later on when you are in the production phase or in editing. Next. I've covered these 2 points. We can go next. Here is an example that you can download from internet, and there are many more of the template for storyboard. So as I said, script is divided into individual shots or screens, number them well. Then there is a space for drawing, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Space for describing an action, what's going on. Drawing obviously cannot easily show the action, so there is a space to describe it. Space for your dialogue or narration. And at the bottom, there is a space for special effects. For example, where the text appears or what type of sound is going on behind. When it comes to drawing, next, you really don't need to be Pablo Picasso. I am not. You can see it's simple as this, but it still is much better than verbally describing what's on the screen, because just by looking on the image, one gets much faster the feeling on what's happening there. So you see my drawings of Rachel Long headshot. And the second one is images of 3 different caterpillars. And the third one, a person, in this case again, Rachel is going through the field and sweeping for sampling the alfalfa with sweeping. You can see that that's what actually is described in the action box, and you can see how the script was transformed into the boxes for the dialogue or narration, and what is in special effects. In the first shot, Rachel is speaking, but there is a field sound behind her, meaning for that shot, we will be recording at the same time the video and the audio. For the following screen 2 and screen 3, there will be an audio narration recorded and placed on top of still images and pre-recorded the video. Though we may still be using a little bit of that sweeping sound because that will give it a more realistic feeling. And next. So here you see how it then transformed into what happened in the field. And we got pretty close to what was the plan. So first image, Rachel recording audio video together, followed by still images. These still images can also appear on the screen in different way. That should also be already included in the storyboard. Will they fly in? Will they fade in? Will they disappear or will they stay? Yeah? And the third is an action part when Rachel is going through the field and sweeping. Okay, going next. If you really feel you are not comfortable with drawing, you can do the storyboard in textual way, and this is how it may look like maybe. So instead of having boxes for drawings, you would leave a column or space for textually describing, verbally describing what otherwise would be visual. But think about it. You have seen the images. Now you see it in form of text. When you are sharing it with your colleagues or with few people from your target audience, what will be more appealing for them and what will give them better understanding what your message is, what you are trying to convey? I think that visual part, even if you are as bad painter or drawer as I am, is still better than just writing it down. Next. What I'm trying to say here is the importance of fact that the script writing and storyboarding is iterative process. There may be just one, there should be at least one, but there may be 2, 3 rounds of improving the script, of improving the storyboard, getting into a stage when your people clearly getting what you want to say and you are comfortable with it before you move to production. Don't go too fast, don't jump into the production without getting that feedback and incorporating it into your drafts. Changing during the production will be always much more time consuming and hence much more expensive than changes during script writing and storyboarding. And next. Few best practices. Always focus on show, not on what are you telling when you are storyboarding. Be cinematic. What I mean by that, think about the image or scene through the camera lens. What do you think would be good people should be doing or your subject should be doing? How should the place look like? How should the camera move? Or should it move at that particular moment? Make sure it's logical and coherent. What I mean here is make sure that you are not missing some important step in explanation in order to make your audience to understand your point. On the other side, cut whatever is not critical for getting into your point. All of us, we tend to include more than what's needed. And then the video gets longer and longer and longer, and you lose your audience halfway through the video. So always try to cut anything that's really not critical for conveying your message. Include all relevant details in the storyboard. It will help you later. It will prevent missing anything important in putting together your props and scene setting and stuff like that. think about what setting or the background for the scene. Think about what all can go wrong. As I already mentioned, a noise, a weather, and so on. What props will be on the scene? Will any text appear on the screen, and where and how? It's also good at this moment already think about the color of the text and size, because that will decide how much space is left for you, or how small the text will be, how many words you can actually put on the screen. And all the time, return back to your learning objective, because that's the one thing that's guiding everything. So don't lose your learning objective somewhere on the way. And my last screen, useful terminology that is good to use instead of lengthy description in your storyboard. 3 types of basic types of shot: close-up shot, long shot, reaction shot, possibly not so common in instructional videos. Different camera angles, what it means if you write high camera angle or low camera angle. Movement of the camera, panning or tilting or zooming. Zooming possibly all we know, but maybe you didn't know what it means when camera tilt. And transitions of the screens, dissolving, fading, jump cut. And depending on what software you will be using for editing, there may be many more options. Just be consistent. When you choose how the scene will transition to another one, use the same transition throughout your video. Don't try to show how many different options there are in the software that you are using. That's not the point. Okay, is there any question?
How are we doing, David?
There's a question on chat from Gabby Meyer about providing the script to be ADA compliant.
That's a very good question. As it's a text document, if you share it in form of Microsoft Word, it's a simple text. I think it should be very easy to make it ADA compliant, the script. In storyboard, it would mean to make a textual document, practically write an alternative text for all images that you include in order to make it ADA compliant. Though these are internal documents, I'm not saying you are sharing it with all your audience. You just select few people from your target audience in order to get the feedback whether you are providing all necessary information for them to get what you are explaining.
I'll interject here. This is David Lewis, and I know Dustin has some experience with this. Accessibility for all of our products is increasingly important, and we are working with communication services and others division-wide to make sure our websites with software and then other ways with video that we're accounting for things like readers and sight impaired, for example, in the case of video. So know that those resources and tools will be coming forward. Either through the video clinics or other opportunities. And as we share some online resources for you, we'll be adding those accessibility resources to those online learning and development pages. So with that, let me advance this to Dustin Blakey. And unless there's any more questions, David, I want to keep us up.
That was the only one to that section. So yeah,
okay, I want to keep us on track here. And really important preparation and planning aspects, as are really important production aspects. So Dustin Blakey's going to share with us tools for production, really a production checklist, right, Dustin?
Right. So you can go to the next slide. So when you are making a video, you're going to find that you've got all these decision points that come up in the process. When we do a PowerPoint, pretty much you're just making some slides and talking. Not a lot of decisions you have to make, but when you go to a video, as Petter showed, you've got to decide things like storyboards and that sort of thing. But beyond, while you're actually making the video, all sorts of interesting things are going to arise. And so we have a checklist that's supposed to help you, at least when you come to these decisions, have a better sense of what direction you should do going forward. We also want to have some consistency among the videos that get posted by ANR. So by having a checklist, helps everybody to sort of be on the same page so we know what's going on. Next slide. As I've been thinking about the process, there's about 5 different places where lots of decisions come up while making the video. Of course, there's all the pre-production stuff before you even make the decision to make a video, but we do have other decisions you have to make, you know, once you've committed to doing the video, but before you've actually done recording that you'll have to do. There's some decisions related to content management, editing, and coding, and then the actual act of uploading or posting the video has a bunch of decisions to make too. So next slide. So there's a learning and development page on our website. It's got a really long URL to get to it, so I've got a shortened one here. I'll show it again in a minute, so if you get your pencil ready to write it down, you'll be fine. But it gets you a shortcut version to get to our tools. Next slide. Once you follow the shortcut, it's going to go to the page that has the learning and development video tools. You may have to scroll down a bit with that link, but currently, as it's set up, the very first link under video development is this production checklist. So we're encouraging you to download that checklist before you make a video. And then, you know, every time you're going to make subsequent videos, we'd recommend you getting the latest version of the checklist. It is a draft, it's in progress, and you know, we're looking for feedback on it. So there may be changes coming up. So definitely every time you go to make a video, I highly recommend that you go ahead and get the newest version of it. So I wanted to go through the different sections of it and have some comments about some of the sections. But before we get to that, I would like to say that, you know, if you decide to do a video through A&R peer review now, we're asking that you include the checklist with that. We also would like you to include the checklist if you're submitting it, not necessarily for peer review, but you'd like A&R to post it on the channel to include the checklist also. And this just helps, you know, either reviewers or editors have a sense that you've followed the standards that we've hoped for you to do and that you were on the right track. And again, it's some for consistency. If you choose to post a video on your own, you know, YouTube page or social media, you know, the checklist will get you in a good place, and we recommend you using it, but nobody's gonna, you know, require that document to be sent along. So let's go through the different sections really quick. Next slide. At the top part, we want some information about the title and the editing software you used. This is to help, you know, if an editor or strategic communications will be doing the uploading. But one of the things I did want to point out is there's a little box for your audience, and there's, you know, either anyone or primarily minors. And it's important that you think of that before you make the video when you're deciding what your potential audience is. YouTube now requires us to identify a video as either one of those audiences before we can upload it. So we definitely need to know that ahead of time. Next one. So under the pre-production checklist, it doesn't cover everything that we've suggested that you go through, like identifying audiences and whatnot before making a video. But there are things that you're going to run across that, you know, as you're getting the idea ready and beginning to produce the video. And so our hope is that this checklist will get you on the right track. So things like, you know, make sure that you have enough lighting or the sound is, you know, working out. I've done some videos with a local TV station in my last position, and before they would ever actually start the real recording, we always did a sound check, you know, so that sort of thing. Some locations are going to require you to have a permit for filming, if it's something like a national park or, you know, a private, you know, owned location. You may have to get some kind of permit, especially if there's a tripod. So this walks you through some of those decisions. Also has a few optional steps if you're going to submit it through peer review, you know, to contact the AE before producing it to make sure that there's not something else going on. You know, and if you're going to be using something like a green screen, you know, to have a good background, have that all ready to go. So this is to get you started in the right place, maybe before you start, you know, going astray. It's kind of a prevention section. Next. The next part is the content elements section of the checklist. And this is the part that we're using to sort of guide people in having some consistency to how our videos look. So to make sure that we have the right kind of assets, we have a toolkit, you know, of intros and outros. And, you know, we're asking that you use those, and it's a checklist thing. We want to make sure that the music is legal to use. We have a source called Killer Tracks. There's a library of licensed music, so we want to make sure that you're using music from that. You know, we want to have any written permission from using other people's content and model releases. All that stuff is covered in here. So this is the keep you out of trouble section of the checklist. Next. As far as editing, this might be able to be extended to more things, but for now, this is sort of to guide you in making decisions in terms of consistency and how videos are edited. So this section will probably be changing. This is definitely a draft thing. For instance, we have not really made a clear decision on what format as far as the order videos go. Like, do we introduce yourself first or the topic first? So right now it's kind of up in the air, but as we settle on a kind of a identity and a system we want to use, that's something we'll be able to check off. We want to make sure transitions are consistent and logical between clips. So that's, going to be on there too. So we don't get a lot of crazy 3D spinning cubes, and that sort of thing. So these are things to watch for during edit, and we'd love to have feedback from you when you're editing to make sure these are good. So you can send those to me. Next. And this is the most technically challenging part of doing the video production that if you don't have experience with, it could be really confusing. Almost all the video editing software is going to have dozens of choices of file formats and different encoding techniques that can be used. And while YouTube will pretty much take anything you throw at it, it's going to have to do some conversion and you may lose quality. And it's also going to take much longer for it to do its translation. So if you follow the recommendations we have on here for encoding, you're going to get the fastest conversion, and we're going to have a lot of consistency and really high quality when your final video comes out. And don't worry about, putting up we don't want you to put up a low resolution version of a video to try to be, mobile friendly. YouTube handles that for you. We want you to put up the highest quality possible with what you've recorded, and YouTube will handle the rest from there. So this will get you through what you need to do as far as the encoding content. Next. And the final section is how we actually upload these videos to YouTube. And we've just focused on YouTube for this, but certainly if you're going to be doing something like Facebook or Instagram, it's going to be a little bit different. But there's things to think about as you upload it. You need to come up with a title and description that's catchy. You're going to have a thumbnail image so you can make your own so it can look really neat. Like, when you've gone to YouTube and you see a picture of a video and it's got a nice title slide and, maybe a picture of what's going on, but you never actually saw that as a clip in the video, you can do a custom version. It lets you do that. If you're going to want to have links at the end of your video to other videos, you're going to have to leave a 20-second gap at the end for those to pop up. So it gives you that sort of guidance what to do. It's kind of the finishing touches. This is subject to change when we're looking at streamlining the process of getting videos up to the ANR YouTube channel. We don't have an actual process in place for that. Well, we should have it by the time we do that final video clinics, and we'll put that information on the video tools page for the learning and development site when we get that. Next slide. So just quickly to keep in mind, this isn't a working draft. Right now it's the best we have. We're looking at expanding that as we all get more experience with the process and we streamline the production pipeline. So like I said, any feedback you can give to us as you work through the checklist, we would love to have. There are only a few ANR official assets like intros and outros that currently are available, but we're having more options being created. So if you go right now to our toolkit and you just see a short number, don't panic. There's going to be more stuff there, but we're hoping that they're all consistent and follow our branding. So each time you go to make a video, go back to the toolkit, get the newest checklist, and also look for new content. And then finally, here's the link to the video tools. It's a little squished URL that you can follow that will get you to the right page. And just to summarize, if you're going to do it peer review or put it at the ANR channel, we need to have the checklist with it. If you're doing personal uploading, we recommend using the form, but you don't have to submit it to anybody. And that's all I have.
So I'm going to transition to Linda Forbes from Strategic Communications and have her help us expand on the branding and some of the intros and outros and how to post. And as Linda, you get started, I just want to emphasize back at that website Dustin's highlighted for us, there is an equipment list. It's a list that both Petter and Dustin have vetted with options for equipment and software. So cameras, microphones, and editing software. So know that that resource is there for you. Linda, thank you for joining us and leading us with such wonderful tools for branding and posting.
Good morning, everybody. So go ahead and go to the next slide. I just first wanted to show you where these branded assets are located. They are in the new communications toolkit under branding and then under photography and videography. And as Dustin mentioned, I think we have about 6 intros and just 1 outro at this point. So we'll be obviously adding more to the options there. Next slide. We also have the A&R, appropriate backgrounds in white and blue and sized for insertion into your video. And we have the lower third format that you see here in the example, including the graphics. So it'll tell you what fonts to use and the color code, and it has the little graphic with the bar on the left. In terms of posting best practices, there are probably a lot of others in the division that are better at this than me, but just in what I've learned so far, it's really important to conduct keyword research so that you make sure that your title and the description of your video have appropriate keywords to allow people to find the content easily. And then you can optimize YouTube tags using relevant keywords. It's important to transcribe your videos, not only for accessibility, but for search. And categorizing your videos is the best practice. Again, helping with search and helping with people find the right content that they're looking for in terms of how-to information. Peter knows more about this than me, but you can use cards and end screens as an SEO tool as well. And it's also recommended that you upload a custom thumbnail image. YouTube will throw up some options for you, kind of prefab options, but it's always better to do your own. Those aren't always the best. So it's always better to do your own, the one that you think that will appeal to your audience the most. And all of these bullet points are fleshed out in detail in a longer document on the Learning and Development site. I'm seeing a question about what are cards and end screens, so I'll just quickly tell you. They're a way to get viewers to engage with your videos and spend more time with your content. And the goal is to get viewers to watch more videos by linking to other YouTube videos or linking to specific playlists or channels. And I'm actually reading from the longer document that's on the Learning and Development site. You can also use them to encourage users to sign up to your channel or to visit your social media sites. And the cards are suggested to remain on the screen just for a few seconds, and then you can also link off of YouTube to your website. And again, there's more information on the Learning and Development site if you want to learn more. Next slide. In terms of distribution, it's important to share and embed your videos on all of your, all the other relevant platforms, your website, any landing pages you have that are relevant to the topic, sending them out by email. You can put a link to them in your email signatures, put them on your blogs, obviously your social media. It's also recommended that you comment, engage, and interact with the YouTube community because that'll draw traffic to your content. And we invite you to share your video link with Content Pipeline at ucnr.edu because that way the strategic communications team will know that you've posted that video, and we can, put it on the main channel if it's not already, or help you promote it, push it out to our social media platforms, etc. We also invite you to discuss your promotion strategy with us. We know that this isn't necessarily everyone's bailiwick, and we're happy to help you strategize on what are some ways to get your content out to your target audience. And that's it.
Linda, thank you. And again, I just want to reiterate that you're there now as you and your team as the curator for our YouTube channel, and to help us with these kinds of promotion steps once we have a video ready. So really appreciate you stepping into that space. let me try to wrap us up here. We'll be just on time, and we can stay on a little bit for other questions and discussions. But I just want to reemphasize the tools and resources that are available. So again, using that squished URL that Dustin shared with you earlier, you can access any of the resources discussed today, including others, a video 101 manual that Petter Cosina and Steve Elliott have produced. There's an equipment list. There's best practices for recording, practicing videos. The branding tools are accessible. So just know that that's there for you. And then I want to highlight for you that coming up April 8th is another webinar about shooting videos with iPhone. So, and Ricardo Vea from NOS, News and Information Services in Spanish, is going to be providing that for you. So look for that to be announced through the learning and development tools and the A&R resources and webinars. So if you do nothing else today, you can go away and go look at that website and have access to all the tools to coach you to start doing your own video production. And then there's an upcoming training online, as well as already one posted on that same website. So there's tools in place already for you to be moving forward and taking the steps to doing your videos. And indeed, coming up in April, there are two-day clinics, the applications for which will open today. So be looking for an online application survey to come forward to all A&R, to the all A&R list. The applications will close March 20th, and we'll be letting applicants know that they've been accepted into the clinics on Friday, March 27th. Really important aspect is that there is homework for applying to those webinars or to those clinics and being considered as an applicant for those clinics. The first is participating in this webinar, and if you look right at the bottom of the slide, the golden ticket password that you'll need to use on the online application survey is A&R's how-to videos. So if you'll use that as your password, that'll be great. And take the time then to submit as well. The other homework aspect is submit a brief 1 to 2 page project proposal. And it'll explain that again on the survey, and on the announcement today it'll explain that. So with that, I want to just thank all the presenters and the organizing team, Petter, Dustin, Linda. Lauren Stone couldn't join us, but all have contributed a lot to already are coaching us and are a cadre of experts helping us make it possible to do video production. And as we continue forward with the other trainings and resources, we hope it's giving you the tools to be successful going forward. So with that, maybe David, are there questions, or do any of the presenters have some things they want to follow up on?
There's one question from Rosie Bush about peer review time frame, and I don't know the answer to that. Any of the other panelists have a suggestion?
Dustin, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I think it's going to matter, which program area it is. Some of them have a lot more activity and some have less. And it's going to depend on what your topic is, where the expertise is. And, so it's hard to say. It's not going to be speedy. So if you need a peer-reviewed, hot topic that has to go out really fast, that's probably not currently going to happen. You may want to bypass it for that. But if you're looking at something that's really evergreen material, or you've got a little bit of time to wait for it to get through the peer review process, that's probably a better outlet for it.
For those considering different tiers of publications, video public productions and publications, appreciate that both through the Communications Advisory Board and the Academic Personnel Committee, there are resources to describe the different tiers, from just a simple how-to that you just want to develop and have branded well as an A&R video and get it posted, to a very formal, rather lengthy feature peer review publication. So look for those tools as well as you begin your planning your production piece. Any other questions? Well, I think then with that, just want to say thank you to all that signed on. This video again is being recorded so that those that couldn't attend can get that password phrase, and so keep that in mind, and that the password for you, that if you're online now and you want to go apply, ANR's how-to videos, that's the password phrase you want to use, and that'll be one of the questions in the application survey, the online survey. Again, my thank you to everyone that's joined us, that's contributed to the content, just really well done. And to all of you, all the best with really good video productions. Let's go take YouTube. Let's make ANR strong and vibrant on YouTube. Thank you.